So good morning, and we'll start with the prayers initially. Oi palen save Lama Rinpoche Dage Jivo Pene Den Shula Kadren Jempo Gone Jesunde Kusum Dujing Adup Sadu So Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shanju Badu Dane Chab Soji Dage Jin Soji Be Sunam Ji Trola Penje Sanje Dupa Sho Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shanju Badu Dane Chab Soji Dage Jin Soji Be Sunam Ji Trola Penje Sanje Dupa Sho Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shanju Badu Dane Chab Soji Dage Jin Soji Be Sunam Ji Trola Penje Sanje Dupa Sho Semchen Tamje Deva Dang Deve Judan Nimpa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Dalwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Dampa Dang Mendal Wajujik Nering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tonyom Chempola Nepa Jujik Semjen Tamje Deva Dang Deve Judan Nenpa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Dalwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Dampa Dang Mendalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tonyom Chempola Nepa Jujik Semchen Tamje Deva Dang Deve Judan Nenpa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Dalwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Dampa Dang Mendalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tonyom Chenpola Nepa Jujik. So if there's a few of you in the back, there are some seats up here. Feel free to come up wherever you see a seat. And so it's good to see you all again. And it's been a bit of a long break. We had a long break from this course because I canceled in December. So we haven't actually managed to do a lot, have we, in this text? And I think some of you, I'm not sure how many of you are here only just starting, but so I'll give you we'll just do a little overview of what we have done. So reminding you, it's a text written about 2,000 years ago, which is quite amazing already, isn't it? We're studying a text 2,000 years ago, and you think, well, 2,000 years, it would be in a museum somewhere, isn't it? How can it possibly relate to us? But it's so alive. And of course, all the teachings of the Buddha are 2,500 years ago. from then onwards, up until now, they are alive, they are relevant, they are directly related to our ups and downs in whatever century we live in. They're relevant because they're about the mind. The Buddha's teachings are about the mind. The mind is a source of everything. The mind is a source of our happiness, a source of our suffering. It doesn't, the Buddha taught us, it doesn't really depend on externals. It depends on our own attitude. So from that point of view and for that reason, they're always relevant and they're always useful and beneficial if we can apply them to our own situation, if we can apply them to our own way of living. So that's where it depends on our own skill, depends on our own understanding, application, on our application of the teachings, how much we benefit. But definitely they are relevant for us. So 2,000 years ago, this text was written to a king, an old friend of Nagarjuna. I'm sure he had lots of friends, but this king was his old friend that he knew even from childhood. And he wrote this letter of advice for him when he became a king. And so we can think of and imagine what the life of a king was, at that time and today. Any time, I think the life of a king is a life of a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, hard work, and a lot of worries and concerns, possibly also a lot of potential, sidetracks, potential missteps, potential mistakes, and potential indulgences, because as a king, there's a lot more. There are a lot more things you can get carried away with, possibly, if there's a lot of wealth. So the text is written with that in mind, but still that is relevant for all of us because it relates to our desires, our aversions, our attachments, and our clingings, our anger, and how we relate, how skillful we are, how wise we are in our choices, how mindful we are, what qualities we should look for in ourselves, what qualities we should try to develop, what qualities we should abandon. All this kind of thing is relevant for all of us, isn't it? It doesn't matter if we are kings or paupers or, all of us, our mind are affected by all these aspects. So we did some reflections also. So the text itself, it actually mentions that some of the advice is particularly for lay people, but also of course it's, again, the mind is the same, lay person or monastic, we all suffer from the same kleshas and the same afflictions. But particularly some of it being spoken to the king, it relates especially for lay people. And all the different distractions that a lay person has, whereas a monastic has cut that out by their way of life. But you could say that the text, if you summarize a text, then it covers the 6 perfections. 6 perfections of generosity, right conduct, patience, diligence, right effort, meditation and wisdom. And it says all the activities of a bodhisattva, of someone, a great being on the path, are covered by these 6 perfections. But there are different ways of summarizing the text. But it certainly talks about practicing virtuous activity, so pursuing a virtuous life. And it talks about developing wisdom, practicing meditation, the right view, and the fruition of the path. So last time we contemplated and reflected. You could say briefly we reflected on the faults and consequences of anger and the benefits of patience, and we reflected on the consequences of and faults of desire, clinging, and the benefits of contentment, and reflected on the benefits of diligence and the faults of, the benefits of diligence, the faults of laziness, the consequences of laziness. So just adding little contemplation so we don't only just study the text. And just to briefly go over the outline that we have covered so far, we looked at the title of the text, the translator's homage, the importance of humility, the first few verses. And then the main text from verse 4 onwards, talks about the objects of faith and refuge, so that one should never forget to keep refuge in mind, to keep three jewels, keep the three jewels in mind. If we take refuge as a Buddhist, this is our rock, you could say, the refuge, the source of refuge, the three jewels. And then there was a sort of explanation of virtue, of generosity, and of right conduct, of ethics. But then there was a very brief covering, a brief explanation of the essence of the path through generosity, right conduct, or ethics, and the six perfections. And then it goes into, from verse 9, it goes into a more detailed explanation of the six perfections. And that's why it says, especially for lay people, as monastics have already taken the vows that says, you give up certain things and you have taken precepts to follow along the path. So we looked at generosity, we looked at ethics, looking at giving up what is incompatible with the path, such as stinginess, cunning, greed and sloth, arrogance, attachment, hate and pride. All these things that we know very well. And in cultivating carefulness, compatible with ethics of virtue, and then the benefits of carefulness, and then under anger, under patience. So this is a way of covering the first few of the perfections, yeah? It's just to give you a little skeleton, because I'm assuming a refresher, yeah? And for myself, to be honest. So that looks at the first two of the perfections, generosity and ethics. Then it goes on to look at patience, giving up anger. As a way of developing patience, we have to give up anger. We give up resentment. That's a result of patience. And then looking at our mental attitude, understanding our attitude, and then our speech, avoiding speech that cause anger and resentment. So looking at speech, looking at the mind, the attitude, the motivation. And then it goes on to talk about diligence, application. And then next it goes on to talk about the way to eliminate desire. So this is all as ways of course, of taming the mind. Ways of how to live a good life is that if we can tame our mind, we need to look at removing any causes of instability. Basically, it's like when you look at anger, when you look at desire, when you look at the kleshas, it's about removing the causes that hinder that stability to be present. Yeah? So, So that talks a lot about, desire. Up until verse 27, that's where we got last time. And that's where we looked at verse 1 to 27, talks about the way to eliminate desire. And we also skipped to we included verse 36 and verse 37 as sort of included. That's one way of it sort of fits in at this point. So we've already done verse 36, 37, but we finished at verse 27. Does that all come back to you bright and clearly? If not, then I'm sure we'll study. I regard this as we're studying this text together. It's not as if I know this text by heart by any means. I'm studying it myself, and I think that's okay. So we have a session till 11:15, then we have a break, then we have another session 12 till 1, then we have lunch break 1 till 2, and then we have a last session in the afternoon 2 to 3:30. So we're starting now on verse 28. Is there anybody who doesn't have the text? I have only 3 texts here. Anybody if you sit next to each other, you can share them. But no, I have an extra one here as well. One more here. Okay. If anybody needs a text, please come to the office in the break and they will print some more. So, verse 28. Really what all this is talking about is developing meditative concentration. All of the mentions are about the things we need to change. You know, that's really what taming the mind is about. It's about recognizing where we go wrong, where we have negative habits, what we need to purify. As you may remember, the word Sangje in Tibetan, which is a translation for Buddha, the Sanskrit word Buddha, into Tibetan, the Tibetans called Buddha Sangje. And Sang means to purify, and Je means to develop, to make blossom. And so to a Buddha, the word Buddha in Tibetan, it really means someone who has purified everything that needs to be purified and has developed all the positive qualities that we can develop. So it shows us what the path is. The path, you know, there's a big text in the Theravada tradition that's called the path of purification. Because that's the path. We are on the path of purification. We need to purify our anger. We need to purify our kleshas, our afflictions, our clinging, our confusion, our ignorance, our jealousy, etc. Because with those afflictions, we are not able to develop. They hinder the growth of positive qualities, the Je, the Sang and the Je. We need both. So what we are seeing a lot in this text is about these two things. Sang and Je. Purify and develop, make blossom. Nurture the positive. Nurture the positive. We get carried away with the negative. We so often get carried away with thinking negative thoughts and projecting negative things towards others, thinking negatively about ourselves, about a situation, getting depressed, getting upset. It's just because we haven't, instead, we're not nurturing the positive. We need to nurture the positive and purify the negative. That's really the path. So that's what Nagarjuna talks a lot about here. Turning away from the things that actually are causes of suffering. So you should look at it like that. And again, I would say, I think this is quite a literal translation. I've seen different translations, some that I feel ring a little or flow a little bit better, or bring the meaning out a little bit better, but this is maybe more literal. So you have to use your own, clear judgment of or understanding when you read the text. You have to apply it the way I mentioned before, okay? So, verse 28 talks about the qualities. Positive qualities. It says, it talks about something, what makes someone worthy of respect. It says, to those possessed of breeding, learning, and handsome looks, who have no wisdom nor discipline, you don't need to bow down. But to those who do have these two qualities, even though they're lacking the other virtues, you should show respect. So he's saying that if someone, if people have wisdom, understanding, like not just worldly knowledge, but true, like good, beneficial, meaningful understanding of how to live life, about what is beneficial and what is harmful, what is good and what is bad, what are the consequences of our actions, positive actions, negative actions, the way of our thinking, what are the consequences of our thinking and our speech. If someone has that wisdom, like these are quite, this is something we can understand, is that we're not necessarily talking about wisdom of non-duality, wisdom of the nature of mind, even that deep. Of course we should understand, we should respect someone who has that wisdom, but we don't always know. But if someone has that general sanity of knowing what is right and wrong, and they have, here it says, morality, like it says discipline, morality, ethics. Ethics, I think, is a good word. Morality sometimes we feel it has a sense of judgment. I mean, we do need judgment when it comes to ethics, but ethics is that understanding of the consequences of our actions. So if somebody has and live according to wisdom, understanding, and ethics, that means that they live their life free from harm. Please, there's seats up here. Seats up here. Don't feel shy. Then that is something that's very worthy of our respect, rather than we tend to be very superficial. We tend to show respect for the way people appear, appearances, handsome looks, or external things. So that's the kind of thing that's mentioned here. The qualities. We should look for qualities that accompany wisdom. And we should, he goes on to say, verse 29, you who know the world, take gain and loss, or bliss and pain, or kind word and abuse, or praise and blame, the 8 worldly concerns. Make them the same and don't disturb your mind. So it's about, here is identifying what we call the 8 worldly concerns. And it says we should We should equalize the 8 worldly concerns. We should not be so caught up in praise and blame, in gain and loss. We should identify them, and we should recognize how much stress they cause us in life. Now think of a king, he would have a lot of involvement with this. There would be a lot to blame him for. He would gain a lot of praise, a lot of blame. So in our own lives, how much are we caught up in praise and blame? And what does it bring us? For these 8 preoccupations that are common to a worldly way of life is where we are only we are unhappy when we are blamed, and we are happy when we are praised. But when we look at the way it works, actually, it's very superficial. One moment somebody is blaming us, next day someone else is praising us, or maybe the same person is praising us. So here, Nagarjuna is recommending learn to identify these 8 worldly concerns and make them the same. Equalize them. That means that we don't get so over the moon if we have a good reputation, and we don't get so distressed or depressed or upset or disturbed if somebody says negative things about us, bad things. Now, of course, I guess if we have to use again our intelligence. If somebody is blaming us, we have to look, is there a cause for that blame? Is there any substance to it? But if there isn't, then we can have a mind that is we equalize these. It's the same to us. We don't need to get so up and down and carried away by the words of others. So this is something we should look at in ourselves. We should work on that. And then in verse 30, it talks about giving up the negative actions that are the result from being caught up in the 8 worldly concerns. So when we are very carried away by, or when we are very involved with, concerned about praise and blame, like it says bliss and pain, gain and loss, kind words or abusive or angry words, then that causes us to act in certain ways. It means, like it actually says in the teachings, a lot of the suffering in the world is caused by being overly involved with these 8 worldly concerns, because we are chasing so hard to attain the gain, the bliss, the pleasant words and the praise, and to avoid the other 4, that we cause a lot of negativity in that process. We are constantly striving to, attain material wealth, to be accepted by others, to be liked by others. All of it is external. It's not about our own inner stability and our own confidence in who we are. It's like relying on the judgment of others, which only see us superficially. So we need to develop confidence in our own worth and in who we are. And if we live according to ethics and wisdom, we have that, what's mentioned before, wisdom and morality, then we should develop that strength, inner strength that does not rely on the approval of others. That's also what is mentioned in the 7 points of mind training. It says, out of the 2 witnesses, use the main one. Like, you know your own mind best. You know your own motivations. You should be able to rely and judge yourself from that You should develop a confidence in your own meditation, in your own development, in who you are through your practice. And not just simply be caught up in a constant striving for these praise or fear of blame. So then Nagarjuna gives this advice on giving up the negative actions that result from and identifying the negative results of the 8 worldly concerns. And he says, perform no evil or no negative actions, even for the sake of Brahmins, bhikkhus, gods, or honored guests, your father, your mother, the queen, or for your court. Remember, he's talking to a king. They will not take any share of its fruits, of the fruits of your negative actions. You alone will experience the results and consequences of your own actions. So for that reason, you should not act, Nagarjuna is saying, you should not act negatively, cause harm based on these involvements with praise and blame, even for the sake of your own loved ones or your teachers. It says Brahmins, gods, guests, your father, mother. Because you will yourself experience the consequences. Remember that that's what Nagarjuna is advising the king. Remember, you will experience the consequences, so give up negative actions. And then he goes on to explain why it's necessary to give up negative actions. In verse 31, he says, even though performing wrong and negative actions does not at once, like a sword, create a wound, when death arrives, those negative actions will show their karmic, and their karmic fruit will clearly be revealed. So he's saying that we might not right away feel the consequences of our negative actions, our negative way of thinking, our speech. But just like karma ripens, just like a seed that ripens and multiplies, then karma also the consequences of negative actions also, they create habits, they create tendencies, they multiply, they become stronger and stronger. The more we engage with anger, the more we engage with negativity, the more we strengthen those tendencies in ourselves. And he's saying that at the time of death, then the power of those actions become very strong. Because at that time we are sort of helpless. We are like floating. We're like a feather on the wind of karma. It says after death and at the time of the bardo and rebirth, then depending on the karmic consequences of how we lived our life, what did we do? What was our tendency? What good did we do? The strength, the force of our actions will carry us along. That's all that's left. We're powerless at that situation, at that time. And he's saying, like it's like a bird that's flying in the sky. So in the bardo, we're like a bird that's flying in the sky, and you don't see the shadow. And then when we take birth again, the shadow reappears. So in that way, karma follows us, even though we don't see it clearly. But it becomes like from life to life, our actions ripen for us. They ripen for us and not for someone else. So he's saying, Nagarjuna is saying, think of that. Think of that you cannot escape the consequences of your actions. And the consequences of negative actions is pain and suffering. And the consequences of positive actions is happiness. So think of that. And that's the reason why we should give up negative actions, because we are trying to develop We're trying to tame our mind, we're trying to develop peace of mind, so turning away from negative actions is essential. Sometimes people think when they meditate, they think, oh, we just have to sit and meditate, and the rest of our life is something completely separate from my meditation path, my path of like developing mindfulness. They think that it's like a yoga exercise or physical training exercise where you go to the gym and then everything else is separate from that. But really we cannot separate our meditation practice from the rest of our life. We need to live our life according to ethics, according to, karma, consequences, because that will affect us. We will bear the consequences, and also, as Nagarjuna said, they will ripen even manifold, just like a seed that ripens and grows. Say a mango seed. It uses normally mango seed in these Asian texts. So it says a mango seed will grow into a mango tree, and eventually that tree will have many, many mangoes. And maybe we eat one or two of them, a few of them, but many of them will drop to the ground, and then more trees will grow and more mangoes will grow. And so in that way, karma and consequences of our actions actually multiplies. And we can observe it in our own mind. From that, just observing the tendency when we give in to tendencies, we strengthen it. We strengthen it. We give in to think negatively. Or if we have thoughts of resentment, thoughts of anger, thoughts of like negativity towards something or someone, we give in to that. The more we give in, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, the more negative we become. And the more negative we become, the more negativity we give out. And the consequences of that multiply, become more and more and more. Through our speech, through our actions, through our way of thinking. And it becomes more solidified within ourselves. So we strengthen it. It's like this idea of a seed and many fruits, meaning we strengthen those tendencies. We make them more solid. And of course, the more strong they are, the more consequences there are. The stronger they are, the more they will act out, the more we will act them out. And then we will bear the consequences. So I thought that we should sit and think about. So it says here So this talks about then turning away from the 8 worldly concerns, giving up negative actions, and the reason why we give up negative actions caused in those concerns. So we should sit and contemplate these 8 worldly concerns and how we are affected by them. So gain and loss. Gain and loss, like material gain, material loss. Pleasure and pain. Sometimes it's happiness and suffering, but it's really like pleasure. It's not what we normally would call happiness in Buddhism, but pleasure and pain. How much we strive for pleasure, how much we try to avoid any form of pain. And then you could say pleasant words and unpleasant words. Pleasant words, things that soothe us, pleasant or kind words, and unpleasant words. And then praise and blame. So praise is more like external, not directly to us. So these are what you call the 8 worldly concerns. Think of how much of our life is caught up in these concerns. It's a good word, isn't it? 8 worldly concerns. We are concerned about this. Sometimes they call it the 8 worldly dharmas, but that gets confusing. Because Dharma. So Dharma, it's not Dharma in our spiritual sense, it's concerns. Dharma actually means phenomena, literally in Sanskrit. So think about, put your experiences into perspective regarding these 8 worldly concerns and regarding your own concerns about praise and criticism, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, pleasant words, unpleasant words, like insults, you could say, pleasant words or insults maybe. Hearing good news, hearing bad news, when things are going well, things are not going well. It's these 2 scales that we are constantly trying to balance in our life. And that gives us so much stress. So Nagarjuna is saying, you need to equalize these 2. You need to be able to cope. You need to not put so much, don't be so distraught if things are not going according to your ideas, or things are not that pleasant, or if things are it's not the end of the world. If you can learn to equalize these 8 worldly concerns, you will be so much happier in your life. You will be so much more stable. So look at when you are upset. How does it relate to these 8 worldly concerns? So he's telling us we need to put that into, like the experience of these 8 worldly concerns. We should put it into perspective. And so let's sit for a while. Please sit for a while and just think about that, okay? So I'll maybe remind you, we'll sit for a little while. I'll give you a few clues also how to think. But first of all, we start with that. So maybe start with praise or criticism. Think about, why is one more important than the other? It's just words after all. Why do we identify so strongly with those words, with one or the other? Why does it affect us so strongly when we are either praised or criticized? Maybe both don't have much, much grounds for those words. Maybe the person who's praising us or criticizing us has no real knowledge of us. So why are we so affected? Why do we identify with the words? So to try to develop a sense of, you could say, renunciation, recognition. So contemplate it, develop a sense of recognition and renunciation relating to this praise and blame, criticism. So you should remember and recall that when you are praised, then there are also others at the same time who criticize. And when you're criticized, at the same time, there may be others who praise you. Maybe not directly to your face, but look at this contradiction. Why are we so affected? So try to recall the times when you were praised in the past, and also recall times when you were criticized in the past. And you think that there will be others who will criticize me again in the future. And there will be others who praise me in the future. And then focus on then recognizing that this is nothing special. It's no big deal. Think that in the future it will happen again, what happened in the past. So think about that both with praise and with criticism. And then you try to develop a sincere wish to be free from this emotional concern or worldly concern. Develop you could say, disgust or a renunciation related to the emotional ups and downs regarding praise and blame. Think of it, it's nothing but like an echo, praise and blame. It's like an echo, sound, words that have no real substance, no essence. So you think in the same way related to the other worldly concerns such as gain and loss. Think about how you are affected by material gain and loss, or could be gain and loss of your position, your job, whatever we're striving for, So remember when, or recall when you had a great loss. And when you had, well, let's think of material loss and material gain. That's more straightforward. So recall times when you had material gain, and then also recall when you had losses in the past. And the effects it had on you. And think that in the future there will be other gains, there will be other losses. You might win the lottery, you might lose, who knows. There will be other gains, there will be other losses, things come and go. Why are we so hugely affected by it? Don't try to equalize this. Things going well, things going poorly. Try to have this attitude of sameness. Things come and go, things are impermanent. Things are never going to stay the same. Even if you're a millionaire, if you become a millionaire, you won't stay a millionaire. And develop a sense of wishing to be free from concerns. This concern of constantly trying to gain, put so much striving into achieving material gain and avoiding loss or fear of loss. Because generally things going well or things going less well. We need to have more of a balanced attitude. If we think of the Buddha's teachings, if we really take the Buddha's teachings to heart, we can say, what do I expect from samsara? Do I expect samsara to be perfect? Do I expect samsara, which we have learned is everything is impermanent? So how can I be so surprised and upset by all these changes? So you're putting the experiences into perspective, both in the present moment and then in the bigger scheme of things, our entire lives. And then think about how much effort we put into pleasure, developing pleasure, pleasurable feelings, and avoiding painful feelings. So these are the pair of the 8 worldly concerns. You have gain, loss, praise, blame, then pleasure and pain. How much we strive for pleasure. How much effort we spend. How much time we spend on these sort of ephemeral sensations. How much fear we have of pain. How much avoidance we have about pain, sickness, physical pain, mental pain, unpleasant feelings. So again, try to equalize them. Think of experiences in the past of both pleasure and pain. Look at how they change, pass. And look at how much of your time and energy and concern around pleasure and pain is used, spent. Trying to avoid pain and trying to develop pleasure. And recognize that in the future there will be pleasure and there will be pain, and it is part of samsara, it is part of life, part of impermanence. So again, try to develop a sense of sameness, sense of no big deal. Things come and go in our life. We don't need to be so fixated or have these, again, expectations of samsara to be perfect. And we need to recognize pleasure is not actually, it doesn't equal happiness. So much striving for pleasure, what does it actually do? Instead, have a sense of stability and acceptance. We should recognize and think about the fact that as long as I have not purified my own mind, purified my own karma, then there will be experiences of gain and loss, pain, unkind words, blame. That it's a matter of my own purification. So we can't expect that we can sort of attain perfection externally if we don't purify our own mind. So gain and loss, pleasure, pain, praise and blame, and then the fourth is pleasant words and unpleasant words, or kind words and unkind words, or however you, insults you could say, more directly than praise and blame. So again, consider those two in your own life, your own experience. Remember your own reactions to pleasant, kind words and unpleasant, insulting words. Why is one more important than the other? Why do we put so much emphasis on pleasant words? Is after all, it's only words. Again, like an echo. Why do we identify with one rather than the other? If we see the impermanence and the non-existence of them. So remember them in the past and think of in the future. Surely you will experience both. Some will have kind words for you, some will have unkind words for you. And recognize that that's just normal, it's nothing big deal. Nothing special. It's what we should be expecting. We should not be surprised. But what we should do is we should develop a wish to be free from the reactions, from the free from this fixation on wanting praise and pleasant words and being so afraid of blame and unpleasant words. So you should think that in the future I will hear both. But in the future I really want to have stability, I really want to develop a sort of renunciation with this involvement with the emotional ups and downs. So we want to be free from this involvement. We want to equalize them, like Nagarjuna recommends, equalize these 8 worldly concerns. Develop confidence in who we are, in our own potential, in our own Buddha nature, in our own practice, and not give the words the power to make me into either a wonderful person or a terrible person. And after all, what we call I or me, it is simply what we label a continuous stream of changing moments. Continuity of all the changing aggregates or the aggregates, sometimes called the heaps. So key point is to just consider how due to misguided involvement with these 8 worldly concerns, we cause ourselves a lot of suffering and we destabilize our own mind. So then at the end, just sit for a few minutes and meditate. Shine, just be present. Rest your mind in present moment. So then we do the dedication. Sunam de tam je se pani tom ne nye pedanam pam che ne che gana je balav tu paye se pe sole do wa do wa sho Sanjun Chimchi Rinpoche Maje Panam Jejoche Che Pa Nyam Pa Me Padam Kone Gondu Pelwa Sho Palen Lame Shape Dem Padam Kanyam Yong La De Se Jong Wa Dang Ta Shen Ma Lu So Sa Tip Jane Nyo Do Sam Je Sa La Ge Ba Sho. Palen Save Lama Rinpoche Dagi Chivo Pende Den Shula Kadin Jempa Gone Jesonde Kuson Du Jing Arup Sadu Sa Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Sanjo Badu Dane Chap Suchi Dagi Jin Soji Be Sunam Je Drola Pemje Sanje Dupai Sho Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Sanjo Badu Dane Chap Suchi Dagi Jin Soji Be Sunam Je Drola Pemje Sanje Dupai Sho Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Sanjo Badu Dane Chap Suji Dagi Jin Soji Be Sunam Je Drola penje samje dupa sho semjen tamje devadam dewe judan dempa jujik dunga dan dunga je judan dawa jujik Dungal me pe deva dampa dam mendawa jujik Nyering chadan dan dalwe tonyom chenpola nepa jujik Semjen tamje deva dam dewe judan dempa jujik Dunga dan dunga jin judan dawa jujik Dunga me pe deva dampa dam mendawa jujik Nyering chadan dan dalwe tonyom chenpola nepa jujik Semjen tamje deva dang dewe judan denpa jujik Dunga dang dunga je judan dawa jujik Me pe deva dampa dang mendawa jujik Nyering chadan dan dalwe tonyom chenpola nepa jujik. So we continue in the text, verse 32. Talks about the distraction. Of course, now yes, as I mentioned before, the text talks a lot about the things we have to give up, the things that stop us from developing that stability of mind, clarity of mind, so here one of the things, he says, distraction by wealth, desire for wealth. And then Nagarjuna talks about the wealth, the wealth to be abandoned, the wealth to be attained. He says, he talks about the, ordinary wealth and superior wealth, qualities of mind. So he says, faith and ethics, learning, generosity, bounteousness, a flawless sense of shame and decency, and wisdom are the 7 riches the Buddha taught. So you should know that other common riches or wealth, other common wealth in comparison with that, they're worthless. That's what he's saying. He's talking about here the 7 precious possessions of the Aryas or the Buddhas. Faith and ethics, learning, charity, bounteousness, like generosity or charity. A flawless sense of shame and decency, like self-respect. Decency and wisdom. Those, he says, are the 7 riches of a Buddha. And so these are the riches we should really strive for. We should really try to develop a strong faith. We should recognize the wealth and the preciousness of faith. It says there are 3 types of faith. Faith, inspired faith, longing faith, and faith of confidence. Faith in the 3 jewels, confidence in cause and effect, faith and confidence in the fact that negative actions cause suffering, positive actions cause happiness, and importance of our motivation. So he says confidence in the law of actions and their effects. So the three types of faith, it says inspired faith. It's like when you visit a temple for the first time, or whenever you visit a temple, and all the different aspects in a temple that are there to inspire you. All the images of the Buddhas, the representations of the Buddhas, their speech, body, speech and mind, that inspires you when you hear about all their qualities, you think about all their qualities. So this is what you call inspired faith. Initially, when we come to a temple, we might be so kind of like, oh, we're so inspired, there's something there. And then we have to be careful we don't lose that inspiration. It becomes very ordinary for us. It becomes something, we are so used to it that we forget to appreciate the actual qualities of what this represents, what the three jewels represent. But also maybe in the beginning our faith is very naive, inspired faith, very naive. We just sort of see and we don't really understand. So it says this leads on to more longing faith. As we learn about the teachings, we become very keen to develop the qualities ourselves. So maybe then it becomes less about the externals and more about our own path. We want to be free from suffering. We understand the teachings, like the teachings of the Buddha, show us the path that leads to the freedom from our own suffering. So it makes a very personal connection, longing faith. We have more clarity in how to engage with the Dharma, how to benefit, what benefit we can gain from the Dharma. And in confident faith, this is a third level of faith, it arises when we have no more doubt. We have real sense of understanding of the qualities. We have genuine, deep confidence that's unshakable in the three jewels, in the Dharma. We have unshakable confidence in the truth of liberation, in the truth that through applying ourselves on the path, we can gain freedom from suffering. There's no doubt. Even if we haven't gained liberation, but we have this total trust in the teachings of the Buddha. Because we have felt the benefit. We may not have felt the benefit to the completion of the path, but we have felt the benefit to a level and to a degree where that gives us confidence in all the rest of the teachings as well. Even the teachings we don't completely understand. We have the faith and confidence that thinks, well, all of this I have seen for myself, this is true, what the Buddha teaches about the mind. I have the things that I have understood, I can really agree with. I can really say, yes, for sure, I have faith in that because I have felt it, I have experienced it. And so I can also say yes to the rest of the teachings due to my experience of the truth of the path up to the point where I'm at. You can see that there is real, genuine, the three jewels, genuine are a source of refuge, a genuine source of refuge. So faith, says faith has these different stages. We go through different stages on our path. Faith and ethics, discipline, or ethics or right conduct that we need. So what Nagarjuna is saying is that these are the qualities we need to develop, we need to strive for, because these are what give us real wealth. These are precious. These qualities are precious. It's not precious to us if we have £1 million in the bank, because what would we do with that money? We would probably cause a lot of harm for various people with that money. We would probably cause a lot of confusion, a lot of desire for other people, a lot of turmoil within the family of who gets the money, who doesn't get the money, how is it spent. So conflict often arises when we talk about external wealth. So here Nagarjuna is pointing out to us like supreme, superior wealth are these inner treasures, 7 precious possessions of a Buddha. 7 precious possessions of the bodhisattvas, or the attendants of the Buddhas, bodhisattvas. So this is also something that, for example, in Medicine Buddha, we are offering these. If you remember, if you do Medicine Buddha, it says you're offering the 7 possessions and the various qualities. Like externally they are presented in different ways, but they represent these inner qualities. So in the Medicine Buddha, look at it next time you do Medicine Buddha puja, you will see there it's mentioned these 7 qualities of the Aryas. So ethics, right conduct, discipline, where we know and we apply ourselves to what is beneficial, not what is harmful. Learning that comes from like studying the Dharma, that leads to liberation. So it's not talking about ordinary knowledge, it's not talking about knowing the 84,000 teachings of the Dharma even. It's not talking about knowledge, it's talking about, well, it is talking to some degree about knowledge, because it's talking about what we say, Zangmo, to study, to contemplate, to reflect, and to meditate. Zangmo, these 3 pillars of our Dharma. To listen, literally means to listen. It means to study. We're studying the Dharma, so we gain knowledge from studying the Dharma. Sam means to reflect or to think. We're thinking about the Dharma, we're reflecting like we just did. We reflected on the 8 worldly concerns in relation to our own life. So we reflect on the Dharma when we learn it. And then we meditate, gom. We habituate our mind to actually assimilate the qualities of the Dharma. So it's that learning comes together with also gaining complete assimilation of the Dharma, not just knowledge. And then it says bounteousness. It's a funny word in a way, isn't it, in English? Bounteousness. I don't hear many people using that word in English. Charity, generosity, sense of richness, but refers to generosity, one of the 6 parameters, the 6 perfections. Generosity, where we share, we give, we make offerings, we help beings, without expecting anything in return. No, non-expectation. So it's not like you go out and you give lots of food to people and then you say, now you must believe in this and this, or you must believe in the Buddha's teachings, or you must think about this or that, or you must recite that mantra, or believe in Christ, or believe in Buddha. It's not like that. You simply give for the sake of giving. It's like, say, Rokpa, helping where help is needed, but always with that sense of no expectation of anything in return. Unconditional kindness, unconditional generosity is pure generosity. So that's a richness. When we can give with that motivation, then we are rich, we are wealthy. That's a true wealth that we should look for, not sort of accumulating lots of things for ourselves or just thinking of ourselves when we have material wealth. Even not thinking about merit as such. Because of course we do think about merit, because it is part of the teachings. It's the teachings on merit, on causes and consequences, on this Sangje, the J. The J is it like you, through merit, the blossoms, the qualities blossom, because merit is like the merit is like what creating all the good conditions for things to blossom. With merit, it's like you have good soil. With good soil, things can grow. If you don't have good soil, if your soil is poor, if your soil is depleted, nothing will really grow there. Whatever seeds you plant in the soil, they will die, they will wither, they will just kind of dry out. With merit, Merit is like you have all the right conditions within that soil. It's a perfect growing ground for what you are nurturing. So merit is important. We are practicing and applying the teachings of merit, but you are not doing it sort of like with a selfish motivation. You're thinking that, if I can develop the good qualities, then I can be a benefit to others. So your ultimate motivation is bodhicitta, of being able to, make the world a better place in this life, make the world a much better place in the next life. Eventually becoming a Buddha. It's that sort of motivation. Then he says a flawless sense of shame. Sometimes people wonder about this. Say, are we supposed to have a flawless sense of shame? We're supposed to give up shame. We're supposed to be free from concerns of what others think and how others are concerned about or judge us. But here, it's related to as a beginner, or as a beginner means we're not bodhisattvas. If we're not bodhisattvas, then we're beginners. So it means for ordinary beings, we're all beginners. And for us, it's important, the sense of shame means that it holds us back from doing things that we would otherwise be ashamed of. It's a part of us is telling us, no, this is not right. Part of us is saying, this is not what I should be doing. Also, there's a sense of decency. One is slightly different from the other. So one is about what others think about us, and one is about our own recognition of what is right and what is wrong. So if we act out in a way that is flawed, like that we have a negative motivation, we are acting due to negative emotions of, say, jealousy or anger or desire. We know that that we should not be doing that. We know that the result is negative. And so we hold back because we would, if we don't have a sense of shame or decency, we would not be ourselves. We would be ashamed for ourselves. One thing is we would be ashamed to ourselves. We would regret it. We would feel bad about it ourselves. And the other is that others would also see it as shameful. So that helps us to keep ourselves on track. It helps us to not let the negative emotions take over. So for that reason, it's regarded as a positive quality, for a beginner, for a non-bodhisattva. We need to have a sense of right and wrong, a sense of shame and decency to make sure that we apply ourselves appropriately in our actions. So here Nagarjuna is saying, if we have these, and in wisdom, sorry, the seventh is wisdom, knowing what is right and wrong, wisdom to apply ourselves appropriately, deeper wisdom to understand things are impermanent, things have no solid existence of their own accord, I and others, how we go wrong in giving so much value to the 8 worldly concerns, for example. That's a form of wisdom. So wisdom has many different layers to it. But these qualities is what we should. Nagarjuna is saying, strive for this wealth. Strive for the wealth of these 7 precious possessions. Don't put so much effort and blood, sweat and tears into striving for just money, wealth, and things that are really impermanent and often leads to problems, more problems. and leads to distractions. That's what he's talking about here, distractions from striving for ordinary wealth. Distractions that take us away from engaging with the Dharma. So then verse 33, he talks about other activities to abandon, other things that hinder our accomplishments and our attainment of these superior precious possessions. Trivial pursuits to give up. So he says in verse 33, he says, gambling, public spectacles and shows, indolence, bad company, strong drink, and nightly prowls. These 6 will lead to the lower realms and damage your good name, so give them up. So we are concerned with our good name, we are concerned with our reputation, we are concerned that we are doing the decent thing, but we are not overly concerned with praise and blame, kind of like previously, like we looked at. We understand the shortcomings of praise and blame, gain and loss, etc. But of course we don't want to give, for good reason, we don't want to give anyone a good reason to blame us. We don't want to give anyone a good reason to criticize us, or to criticize the Dharma, or the spiritual path, or the teachers. So for that reason, our actions, they're important, they carry consequences. And our actions can lead others astray. And if we act negatively, it may lead others to give up the Dharma, and it may lead others to criticize the Dharma, turn away from the Dharma. So we need to look at them in these different ways. But so, Nagarjuna is saying, there are certain activities, certain like bad company. And interesting to see, 2,000 years ago, they were gambling, they were drinking. Nightly prowls still existed. Nothing new to all of this, what's happening today. Social media, I guess, is new. The speed of everything, the vastness, the vast consequences of everything. Because when we say something now on social media, it can reach thousands of people, isn't it? It can reach even millions of people. Some people have strong influence. So consequences can be greater with that, with the tools that are happening today, the tools, you could call them tools. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad. Sometimes they're neutral, but the power is much magnified in certain areas of today's kind of life, internet and all of that. The power of the influence. It says here, company, the company, yeah. So we need to, of course, here look at your own life, look at how you spend your life and decide what you want to do and what is beneficial and what you find is good for you and what is not good for you. But here, Nagarjuna is very clear to say that these things are not going to help you. Better to give them up or to be mindful of the effect of certain activities and be mindful of how to use your time. And then he goes on to talk about how to give them up. How to, the benefit of using antidotes, the quality of contentment. He says, of all great where are we now? 34. Of all great wealth, contentment is supreme, said he who taught and guided gods and men. So always be content. If you know this, yet have no wealth, you'll have found true riches. So he's saying that the most valuable thing you could find, even compared to gold and silver and jewels and all sorts of wealth, then contentment is the best wealth you could ever have. It's the opposite of desire. When we feel desire, we are always unhappy, we are unfulfilled. Desire is a sense of being incomplete. When we are ruled by desire, our life is ruled by desire, we are constantly overwhelmed or directed by desire. We are constantly looking for something, searching for something we don't have. Feeling incomplete at the very core of our being, of what we are. So society directs us to continuously look for pleasurable feelings and pleasure. We talk about pleasure and pain. So the worldly way of looking for happiness is to constantly fulfill ourselves in terms of pleasure. One pleasure, another pleasure, another pleasure. So it runs out, it sort of like becomes repetitive. It doesn't really, there's nothing wrong with it as such, with some desires and some pleasures. There's nothing wrong as such, but they are not they're not true happiness. And the state of this unfulfilled desire is actually painful. So that's why contentment, being the opposite of desire, a satisfied mind is real happiness, is real wealth. There's a quote from a sutra that says, "For those who stay forever generous, although they have not a single bite to eat, the greatest wealth on earth is truly theirs. It's explained by those with perfect sight, because they're content whether they have a lot or a little. They have little desire." So we can think about times when we feel content, when we feel at ease, when we feel at peace with our situation, feel we have what we need. Everything's actually fine. There's not that constant striving and looking and searching. It's what our mind does all the time. Based on desire, we cannot rest. Based on desire, we cannot meditate. Our mind is looking for something else, something better, something more, something different. So here, contentment is the antidote to desire. We need to cultivate desire. We need to think about all the things we have, all the good things we have. You know, when we were some of us came back from Bodh Gaya recently, spending time in Bodh Gaya, and people think, "Oh, how wonderful you were in India. India, it's warm." Flowers and blossoms and nice. And we were in Bihar, which is the coldest, no, not the coldest, in India it's cold, but it's the poorest area of India, northeast of India in December. It's cold, it's damp, it's clammy, and there's certainly not many nice flowers around. It's not warm at all. Very polluted, very dirty. Bihar is very dirty. You kind of wonder, like, why through all these decades and decades of the Buddha's most holy place being in Bihar and Bodh Gaya, the place where the Buddha was enlightened, the place where all the future Buddhas will be enlightened under the Bodhi tree, all of that merit, all of that goodness, but it doesn't seem to have brought any improvement for the lives of the people around there. Very little. There are beautiful monasteries now, but there's still so much poverty and so much dirt and so poor conditions. So I was thinking that when we were there, you know, the toilets and the lack of hot water, even staying in a sort of reasonable guest house, you have to be lucky to catch that little window where there is actually a little bit of hot water in the tap. And the showers that you have, they don't work. None of the showers work. So you have a big bucket with a little bucket hanging next to it, and then you're supposed to do this, but because it's cold, you don't want to do it in cold water. And so I was thinking, when we came back to talking about contentment, I was thinking, coming back to the West, how amazing to have warmth and to have a warm shower. That was the thing I longed for the most, was a warm shower. But immediately as we landed in Heathrow, and we all went directly for the bathroom, the toilets, I looked at the toilets in Heathrow Airport, and they are miraculous, They work, even though 1 million people come through the Heathrow Airport every day. They're clean. You can flush them. You can flush your toilet paper down, which you can't do in Bodh There's a sign that don't flush the toilet paper down the toilet, and then you have a little basket next to where you're supposed to remember to put all your toilet paper. So I felt so content. I felt so happy going to the toilet in Heathrow Airport. We have so much to be grateful for. Simple things that we don't even realize how fortunate we are. But that's actually how we should think all the time. We have electricity that works all the time. Out there, electricity kept going on and off. Internet kept going on and off. Heating, there was no heating. Hot water, hardly any hot water. So there are so many things. Water, the water that's there, you cannot drink it. You have to have water from the bottle. You try to avoid bottled water because of the pollution of plastic and all of that, but then still you can't make yourself sick from drinking the water from the tap. And all of these things, it's a complicated life. People just throw everything on the wayside because there's no public collection of rubbish, all of these kind of things that we take for granted, and we complain when there's 1 week when they forget your bin. We have so much comfort to be grateful for. We have so much to be content with. If we like these simple physical pleasures of heating and the basics of life, then we should also, be grateful for them and recognize them, actually. Because many people don't have them. So we should think about, where does our food come from? Who toiled and worked hard for that food that we get every day? Did they have the same comfort that we have? Of course we pay for our food, yeah, sure. But they also pay. They also put in their efforts. Do we really need to order food that has been grown in a country where they have very poor living standards, where they get very poorly paid? Do we really have to have strawberries in December? I mean, it always hurts me because I grew up with strawberries in Denmark every summer, and there was a certain season when you had strawberries, and we always had so many strawberries in the gardens of my family. And there was a time where you indulged in strawberries and then they were finished. Now we have strawberries all year round. They don't taste like strawberries, but somehow they're like a ball. You can throw them on the wall and they'll bounce back. You can't do that with real strawberries. They're going to leave a splash on the wall. They're not sweet. Like, why do we eat them? What's the point? If we know what strawberries are meant to taste like, we wouldn't buy those strawberries. If we know that blueberries come, or they're grown in the Andes or in South America and toiled by somebody who had to go out there, I don't know. We say that maybe they benefit from exporting to us, but when I look at Bodh Gaya, I see certainly the people in Bihar, they have not benefited from all of these tourists and pilgrims coming over decades and decades. I don't know who benefits. I mean, the monasteries do benefit. The monasteries, but they're not. The monasteries don't belong to anyone. They don't do it for personal benefit. They do it for the growth of the Dharma, which is a good thing. For the growth of the Dharma, so all others who come, pilgrims who come there can study and learn the Dharma. But local people don't benefit, strangely enough. I don't really understand it. Maybe some of you understand better than me, even though there's so many restaurants out there. But that makes me think, well, the people who grow the blueberries in the Andes and the people who grow the beans in Kenya that we are buying, maybe they also don't benefit. The people who grow the avocados. It says the local people who grow the avocados and all of the orchards of avocados and the palm oil and all of this, they don't benefit. They lose all their water. Because of us eating all these wonderful vegetarian avocados that we think is good, they lose their water. Because we're importing all these avocados. So the local people don't really seem to benefit. I think we need to apply our intelligence and our contentment and be content with little, be content with less. Contentment. Contentment doesn't mean that we have to have access to everything under the sun at any time of the year. Doesn't mean that we have to be able to satisfy our desires. It means contentment means we are content with whatever is available, whatever is there. We can do with little. We can also enjoy if there is a lot. There's an abundance at the season. Or sometimes maybe there is a lot to enjoy. And then if there is very little to enjoy, we can also be content. That's what contentment means. Doesn't mean always to have enough and always to have whatever we want and always to sort of fulfill our desires. I think we are really ruining our planet. We are doing a lot of harm. Even though we try to do good, I think us, like as Buddhists, we are aware of ethics, right conduct, right livelihood, Noble Eightfold Path. We do need to really be serious about applying it, but it's complicated, isn't it? It's very difficult. I'm sure all of us will do our best. But here Nagarjuna is telling us, in all circumstances, be content. Be content with little. Be content, appreciate many have less. And your contentment is your real, genuine wealth. Your contentment is the sweetness in your life. Your contentment is what nourishes you. Your contentment is what makes you really thrive, instead of always complaining. So we should complain less and look more at what we have and look more at how fortunate we are in so many ways in our lives. And then with contentment comes a joy, a sense of wonderful. With contentment, like we should not become discouraged by thinking about this and discouraged to a point where you say like disparagement, like where we feel hopeless. Sometimes we can feel hopeless when we look at what's happening in the world. We can, in a general sense, in an ordinary sense, we look at the news, we look at everything going on in the environment and with people and with greed and with wars, and we can feel discouraged and feel really hopeless and feel depressed and think, yes, samsara, it's really weighing us down. And suffering is weighing us down. But if we look at the teachings, then we should feel hopeful. The teachings give us hope. The teachings give us power. The teachings empower us, because the teachings teach us about cause and effect and show us that in the present moment and in our actions here and now, we are creating the future. That's the hope that it gives us. We cannot create the future for everybody. We cannot sort of take the reins of the whole world and gallop in whatever direction we think is that we should be going. But we can certainly take the reins of our own karma, causes, consequences, by doing the right things, by doing what is right. So in that sense, we can be hopeful. The teachings tell us we actively have to engage. You know, when I thought about Bodh Gaya also, I remembered what His Holiness the Dalai Lama says about ethics and about blessings. And it's nicely quoted in one of his books, where he was in Bodh Gaya at one time in some big event with one of the local ministers, and probably many ministers, local ministers, and the minister gives a speech where he says that, oh, this is all very wonderful, and you know, he says a lot of wonderful things, and he says that due to the blessings of the Buddha, he's sure that Bodh Gaya and Bihar will all, you know, flourish. So he's kind of invoking the blessings of all the Buddhas and this very holy place of Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha was enlightened, and all the Buddhas will be enlightened. It's one of the power places. I don't know, is there 24 power places on the earth? And so then His Holiness Dalai Lama, he counters that with his typical practical sense and humor, and he says, well, you know, if we just rely on the blessings of the Buddha, look around you, something like that. We must do more than just rely on blessings. He says we must act, we must do things, we must live the Buddha's teachings and act according to the Buddha's teachings. And we must have this, you know, you talk about aspiration and application. Application, bodhicitta. We must live the teachings of the 6 perfections. We must practice generosity. We must do it, actually do it, walk the path, something like that. Talked about ethics. Give up harming, give up actions that cause harm to the best of our ability, and practice what is beneficial to the best of our ability, and recognize we cannot do everything all in one go. So it's not enough to have faith and to recognize and to study the teachings. We have to apply ourselves. We have to, in terms of this contentment, we have to develop contentment. We have to decrease our desire. Only if we decrease our desire can we develop inner contentment. Only if we decrease our desire can we develop also peace of mind, tame our mind. So all of these things go together. And that is what Nagarjuna is recommending here. So hopefully that made sense. 34, so the antidote here is contentment. Antidote to desire, antidote to clinging to wealth and to any form of clinging, any form of desire that we also looked at previously. And then he talks about the disadvantages of not using the antidotes. The antidote to desire. He says, kind sir, to own a lot brings so much misery. There's no such grief. So he's talking to the king. Nagarjuna is talking to the king. Kind sir, to own a lot brings so much misery. There's no such grief for those with few desires. The more the Naga lords possess of heads, the more the heads the Nagas have, the more headaches they have. Meaning the more they have of worries and care. So it says Nagas don't have any particular number of heads. They can have many heads, they can have few heads. We're saying it's like a simile, an analogy. For the more we have, the more headaches we have. So if you are very wealthy, if you are a millionaire, a billionaire, you have so much to look after. Even think of all those billionaires who have lots and other big businesses and investments and concerns and so many people employed, so many properties, so much in the bank. There's so much to look after. There's so much to worry about. It's your responsibility that all those people, they have an income, that they continue to have an income. Sometimes you see, due to all the different ups and downs in the financial world, that suddenly somebody can go bankrupt and everybody loses everything. So being wealthy doesn't mean you have a simple life. If you win the lottery, I think, I read once about the worries and problems. There was somebody who did a kind of research and interviewed lots of people who had won the lottery, and how did they do now, years after. Many of them had lost their friends, they had conflict in the family, or somebody in the family had spent all the money on something frivolous. So double pain of loss and gain. Like, if people don't have some form of wisdom, then when you have a lot of power, which money gives you a lot of power. But if you don't have the wisdom to know how to use it beneficially, then it gives you also a lot of problems. You worry about thieves, and you don't trust anybody anymore. You think every friend is out to get something from you. So it's very complicated, isn't it? It says, to own a lot brings so much misery. But still, most people, they strive to own a lot. Actually, it's the main goal for a lot of people. It's like just to have a little bit more, so we just get over the hump. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. You never really get over the hump. You think that then you can go down smoothly the other side. I never hear of anybody saying, oh, now I'm really gliding. Now I'm on the skates, I'm down, things are so smooth and so easy for me, and here, have 1,000 pounds here. Nobody actually says that. So they're always trying to just get over that hump, or that little. It's like when people were escaping from Tibet. Lama described in his book, Over a Mountain, or what is it that, one of these books describes how you get up to the top of this mountain ridge, and you think you'll have a clear view of what is on the other side, and there's just another mountain ridge. It's another ridge and another ridge, one after another after another. So all of that effort, when we could just be content with what we have and enjoy it, use it, enjoy it, appreciate it, be delighted with what you have. Don't develop more headaches for yourself. This is what we need to look at. We need all of us to look at what in our lives, how much are we striving for something somewhere else due to that desire and craving and distraction, and how much are we able to really be like content in the moment. It says like a farmer, like a worker who's been out toiling the soil the whole day and comes back. Is actually one of the examples given in the Shine meditation. You come back from your hard day's work and you go like that. You rest, you properly rest. You probably, how nice, how wonderful. Cup of tea, you just simple things, you're happy. So that's how our meditation should be. That sense of contentment means we're in the moment, we are present, we are appreciative, we are content with what's right here in the moment. And what of course we see in our meditation is very quickly the mind becomes restless. It's like, oh. We can't really stay there for so long. It's like, we start to like nag ourselves and scratch the surface, scratch for something, looking for something. That restlessness of the mind is a desire, is a distraction. Distraction is our enemy. Contentment is our friend. So bring ourselves back to contentment. We have more headaches more pain. And then he goes on to talk about 35. So then we're skipping 36 and 37 because we already did 36 and 37 when it was looking for a partner. Of course, that's a big thing, big deal for a layperson, looking for a partner, attachment to a partner. And a partner, husband, wife, partner, is like someone you think fulfills you. It's the other half of you, where you feel incomplete without that other half. And so you think by having a partner, you think that now you'll be complete. Now that partner will fulfill you and give you what you feel you're missing yourself. Often the role of a relationship is like that. Two people try to fulfill each other, complete each other. But of course, that's very difficult. Because also we find faults in the other person. We don't really see that person as so perfect and so wonderful. After a while, we start to see the things that are lacking and the negatives in the other. So that's the 36, 37. Anyways, those are looking at the type of partner, that the partner to be avoided, the attachment to one's partner. So distraction by pleasure to one's partner, and then it goes on in 38 to talk about giving up attachment to food. So this is all advice for people who are on the spiritual path, is that those are common attachments that we should look at, and we should develop contentment in those areas, really. So food and sleep, because they're not helping us if we have, it doesn't mean we cannot enjoy good food and we can be happy when we have a good sleep, but it means like we're talking about attachment, clinging, grasping, over-involvement with these areas. So here Nagarjuna is saying we should take food as medicine, verse 38, in the right amount, without attachment, without hatefulness. Don't eat for vanity, for pride or ego's sake. Eat only for your body's sustenance. So if we when we meditate on the spiritual path, then it's important that we have a healthy relationship to food. Because if we eat too much, it will cloud our mind. Mind and body goes together. And we will find it difficult to meditate if we fantasize about food, if we strive so much for getting the right foods, or if we eat too much food, indulge in food, it will affect our meditation. So he says, relate to food as medicine. He also says that in the Abhidhamma. The right amount, also for Sangha, the right amount. See it as medicine, or see it as food for all the beings that live in your body. You're feeding all the little creatures that live in your body. If you have any little creatures, I don't know, you have any little pets. Or you think you can also use food as a meditation, where you think it's an offering to the Guru or to the Buddha in the throat. You imagine, you visualize a small little Buddha sitting in your throat, and you imagine that your food becomes nectar that you're offering to the Buddha. So then it becomes a virtuous activity, it becomes a practice, it becomes a beneficial activity, rather than just eating where it increases our greed, it increases our attachment. Or if we are, as he says here, don't eat for vanity or pride or ego state. If we eat for beauty, if we want just for beauty and youth and nice skin, and we want to have a good complexion and beautiful hair, all of these things that we find are so important, keep us youthful, keep us fit. Of course, it's good to be fit so we can sit and meditate. I can't properly sit and meditate anymore now. I have pain in my knees, pain here and there. part of what happens to our body. But of course we should try and stay healthy. We should try and stay fit. But if that becomes such an overriding concern for us, that then we've gone off track. We've gone off track, and we cannot be happy and content with what we have. So we recognize this nurturing our body is about nurturing the precious human body that is a vessel for our liberation. It's important to look after our precious human body. It's not just anything, it's very precious because we found a method to freedom, to liberate us from suffering. That's what makes it precious. But if we don't use it for that, and it's just, makes us feel important because we are beautiful, or we are youthful, or we are this or that, and then we just become, it feeds qualities that are not very healthy in our mind. So it's like middle path. Too much, too little can become an obstacle. If we have too little, also not good. Like the Buddha demonstrated, if we starve ourselves, it's not a good idea. He did that, he tried that. It's not a good idea. But not to indulge one way or the other. So also giving up attachment to sleep. Verse 39 says, knowledgeable one, recite all day and in the first and last watch of the night. And in between these two, sleep mindfully so that your slumbers are not spent in vain. That's the same. Not too much, not too little. It says in between the last watch of the day and the first, I would say, like in that time you sleep mindfully. But you should not let sleep take over, not let sleep become the main aspect, not to indulge one way or the other. That will be more helpful. You will have more clarity of mind. Okay? So it's again to recognize what is helpful, what is beneficial for us, what is beneficial for our taming our mind, developing contentment, inner peace. Whereas if we either have too much attachment to sleep or to food, both of them will cloud our mind. So we'll leave it there for now. And we have a lunch break. Now you can go and you can enjoy your lunch. Do enjoy it. You're allowed to enjoy it. Just do it without attachment. I hope the dal is not burnt today. Sanam de tam je sepane top ne pe danam pam je Jagana Jivalab Chupai Sipe Sole Dowa Dowa Sho Shanjo Semjo Rinpoche Mache Panam Jejo Jepai Nyampa Me Padang Kone Gondo Pewa Sho Palen Lame Shape Ten Padang Kanyam Yong La Desi Jong Wadang Dashen Malu Sosa Dip Jane Nyoto Sande Sala Gepa Sho. So we return at 2 o'clock. Now it's 1. Palen Sawe Lama Rinpoche bende den shula Karen Chambagone Jesonte Kuson Duji Adu Sadu Sa Sanje Chodang Soji Chonamla Shanju Badu Dani Chapsuji Nagi Jinsoji Besonamji Dola Penje Sanje Dupasho Sanje Chodang Soji Chonamla Shanju Badu Dani Chapsuji Dagi Jinsoji Besonamji Drola Penje Sanje Dupasho Sanje Soje Chonamla Sanje Badu Dane Chapsoje Dage Jinsoje Besonamje Drola Penje Sanje Dupasho Semjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Judan Den Pajujik Dunga Dan Dunga Jin Judan Dalwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Dewa Dam Padang Mindalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tonyom Chembola Nepa Jujik Semjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Judan Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Jin Judan Dalwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Dewa Dam Padang Mindalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tonyom Jempola Nepa Jujik Semjen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Judan Den Pa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Dalwa Dunga Mepe Dewa Dam Padang Mindalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Dalwe Tanyom Chempola Nepa Jujik. So we are in verse 40, if you have the text. Champa dang ningje, da dang gawa dang tangyam. So constantly, it's like about the four immeasurables. It's about what we just chanted right now. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So cham dang ningje. Loving kindness and compassion. Gawa is joy and tangyam is equanimity. So constantly and perfectly, it tells us, Nagarjuna is telling us, we must constantly and perfectly reflect on these four immeasurables. Four immeasurables of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Impartiality, see. And should you not attain the higher state, at least you will find bliss in Brahma's world. He's saying these four immeasurables are so important. We must not forget about the importance. We must constantly and perfectly reflect on them if we want to attain freedom from suffering, if we want to develop stability of mind. We need to recognize the sameness of self and other. We need to give up our selfishness of only wanting happiness for ourselves and freedom from suffering for ourselves, and instead think of all beings. And if we can do that, then we are doing very well on the path. If we can at least train in that, if we can at least try, if we can at least remember, if we can at least think about that from time to time, then we are doing very well. He's saying that's very, very important. So these four, they're called the four immeasurables of love, compassion, joy, and partiality. The four immeasurable thoughts, or limitless thoughts. And they're called the four limitless or immeasurable because they focus on immeasurable sentient beings, limitless sentient beings, not just one, not just two, not just our loved ones, not just our close ones, not just the ones we like, not just the ones we think are wonderful, not just the ones who have been kind to us, not just the ones who care for us, but limitless, immeasurable sentient beings. So that's also why they're called immeasurable. We can't even get our head around what does it mean to be limitless because we have so many limitations. We are so focused just on me, myself, and then that whatever we can have room for, but limitless. It says even Chenrezig at one point did not manage to get his head around that. Do you remember that story of Chenrezig? When he loses courage and he looks out over the world to see how many people has he liberated by now because he has practiced compassion for so long that surely there must be less people in samsara. And he looks out and he sees that there are just as many as before. And then he gets discouraged and his head splinters into 1,000 pieces because he made that commitment. And then it says, so he becomes 1,000-armed Chenrezig with many heads. And then it says later on, so he sort of had an epiphany, we call it epiphany, where he had a moment, he had the wrong view. Of course, limitless means limitless. There is no limit to limitless. He was looking for an end to suffering. There is no end to the amount of beings that we have to embrace within this attitude of bodhicitta or the four immeasurables. That's one of the things, or the meaning of immeasurable, limitless sentient beings. And then it says, what is also immeasurable about that is that it brings about immeasurable, limitless accumulation of merit. Accumulation of merit. So if we can really embrace and practice these four limitless meditations of love, compassion, joy, and partiality for all limitless, all sentient beings, then there will be limitless, immeasurable amounts of merit, benefit. There will be so much benefit. So of course that is why Nagarjuna says us, we should constantly and perfectly reflect on these because it's the essence of the path, of the Mahayana path. And if we can do that, then what comes about, the benefit is there will be immeasurable qualities, positive qualities. There will be limitless positive qualities because we will become Buddhas. So Buddhas have all of those positive qualities, sang and je, all of the je will be fully blossomed. All the sang will have completely dispersed. So the qualities that will arise out of this focus is also immeasurable. Immeasurable positive qualities. And there will be the fourth dimension, there will be immeasurable, limitless wisdom. The wisdom that will arise through this is the wisdom of non-duality, of understanding the nature of mind, because that's the only way we can encompass what is limitless and what is immeasurable. It is when we give up our own sense of limit, our limit to self and other. when there's no more sense of self and other, when we can give up that separation, when we give up that loneliness of being me, the loneliness we all feel of being separate, when we can give that up, then there is immeasurable wisdom, limitless wisdom of a Buddha, because that's what a Buddha is. Buddha is the embodiment of these qualities. So immeasurable accumulations of merit and wisdom. Immeasurable qualities, which means the qualities of enlightenment, of liberation, fearlessness and wisdom, primordial wisdom. So we need to know what they are. We need to train in loving kindness. And here it just says love, but it's really, love could mean so many things. Normally we talk about love and it means attachment, or it's mixed with attachment. Here, love or champa, loving kindness, it's selfless. Limitless has to be selfless, isn't it? So it's not the attachment type of love that we normally talk about in our love for our relatives, in our love for our friends, in our love for those who love our friends, or in the love for those who hate our enemies. This sort of love is very partial. That's also why it says impartiality. Impartiality. We have to have impartiality in our love, compassion, and joy. So training in loving kindness, metta, is how we we focus on increasing happiness, wishing others, simply wishing others to be happy. May others be well, may others be happy. And unconditional. Of course, it's like the loving kindness is unconditional. We talked about earlier, no expectations of anything in return. It's not depending on any result. It's not depending on any of others acting according to our wish. So generally in Buddhism we use the loving kindness of a mother towards her child, her children, because a mother loves all her children. Generally we can say, we just talk generally, right? Of course there are exceptions, but generally we can say that a mother loves the naughty child, she loves the perfect child, she loves the difficult child, she cares for all her children, she loves the child who loves her in return, she also loves the child who turns their back on her. She's there for whenever they decide to come back and return and embrace her again. That's the love of a mother, is unconditional. But of course the difference in worldly love of a mother for her child and this sort of for immeasurables kind of love is that a mother loves her child, but then she might also equally have strong aversion to her child's enemies, to all the ones that maybe tell her children off. Or whatever, be a tiger mom, is that what it's called? A tiger mom. You could be a tiger mom, you have like so much drive for your children, you want your children to do so well, but at the cost of everyone else's children or other children. So it's not that kind of mother's love, but it's that aspect of the love that really is so giving and so spacious and so selfless. When we see, how tired parents are, and of course they can also be fed up, but it's a good example. Unconditional kindness of a mother who gives all her time, her concern, her affection, all her efforts. So we need to train in this, and of course we find it quite hard. We find it hard even to our friends. Even to our friends we get fed up sometimes. Our friends we get tired. We start to get annoyed, start to get upset. It's not easy to have unconditional loving kindness. I mean, if it was easy, Chenrezig would not have had some little blip in this development. Chenrezi. If even Chenrezi can have a little doubt, then maybe we can also, from time to time, not allow ourselves to be weak or to be not to practice, but we can allow ourselves that we're not perfect. We can be kind to ourselves, recognize we're not perfect. So we need to know attachment is not loving kindness. As very clearly Nagarjuna has explained, desire is an obstacle to our mental peace and to our settling the mind and to developing stability. Desire is a distraction. When we have desire, the mind is distracted. So attachment and desire is very, very different by nature to this loving kindness. We need to be very aware of the differences. It says attachment can look like loving kindness, but attachment has clinging, attachment has grasping, attachment has something for me in there. And of course also we will have something for me. As long as there is a sense of I, we will have that. We cannot suddenly go from, cannot jump an enormous crevice. We have to go step by step. But we have to recognize the difference. We have to know the difference. We have to know that attachment is destructive and is destructive and is not a cause of peace and happiness. Here it says, with these four immeasurables we will attain the higher states, liberation and bliss. But that doesn't arise out of attachment. So with attachment we are very selective, we're very partial. Here it's talking about limitless. If something is limitless, then it is not partial. It includes our friends, it includes our enemies, it includes all those who do wrong in the world. It includes it says in the Chenrezi, that chant of Chenrezi that is such a beautiful chant, where we pray for each of all the different aspects of suffering and samsara. It says evil rulers who do wrong and who cause suffering in the world. It even includes them. It includes people who cause suffering directly. That comes out of more suffering. It creates suffering out of more suffering. So it's limitless, is the point I want to make. So loving kindness, compassion, Ningje, heart. Ning means heart and Je means noble. So literally compassion is translated as noble heart. Because compassion is noble, isn't it? To have compassion, it means to want to free others from suffering. Again, it has to be unconditional, not mixed with our ego. Everything mixed with ego, it becomes poison. Our ego is like a drop of poison in everything good, and it can just turn bad. Like a drop of lemon juice in milk, it turns sour. So ego clinging mixed in with these four qualities turn them bad, turn them sour, turn them poisonous. But here, like true compassion means we wish others to be free from suffering, for anything painful. We acknowledge suffering and pain. We're aware of, we are kind of understand, have some understanding, we've had some taste of suffering. Like if we haven't really acknowledged suffering, then it's hard to put yourself in someone else's place. Sometimes it's quite straightforward, of course, but sometimes it's quite hard. So it's about acknowledging or witnessing and understanding suffering, and then also having a confidence in the possibility of the freedom from suffering, peace and joy, serenity or peace of mind. So Ningje, compassion, limitless compassion, immeasurable compassion, this quality is compared, as an example, like the other was the mother, this one, the compassion is compared to a very powerful but very kind and very good ruler, like a king, maybe like this king that Nagarjuna wrote this text for. So a ruler who tries to make every effort to make sure that the people in his kingdom are safe, they are healthy, they have enough to eat, enough to drink, clean water, good food, there's harmony within the kingdom, there's no wars, no fighting. So a king who really tries to protect those he has responsibility for is like this attitude of Ningje, compassion, great heart, the great heart. The great heart that doesn't want to see others suffering and who tries to prevent the suffering. So with this, I think we can easily think of His Holiness Dalai Lama as an example. His Holiness Dalai Lama, who is the protector of the Tibetan people, but not only the Tibetan people, but of all beings who seek him out, of everyone who seeks him out. He is such a great, noble person who cares for anyone who comes to see him, who selflessly does. His whole life is dedicated to caring for sentient beings, I think especially the Tibetan people, because the Tibetan people, he has responsibility for the Tibetan people. But then with a wider view of the Dharma, for all beings, for all sentient beings, immeasurable, limitless sentient beings. And he's always joyful, at least. I mean, I cannot say that I know everything that goes on in the Dalai Lama's mind, but he always seems very joyful, doesn't he? He's always laughing, and he always has compassion and care for those who come to see him. Lots and lots of, even now, like from Tibet, refugees come to see him, telling them about their hardship, telling him about their family's hardship, their lack of freedom to practice their religion, and he's there for them, but he doesn't become discouraged. So I think that's like what he shows. It demonstrates a wonderful quality of compassion, is this energetic quality that does not get down. Compassion is not discouragement. Compassion, like genuine, selfless compassion, doesn't become discouraged. It's not pity. It's not grief. It is not sadness. Maybe there's some sadness. Maybe there's some, like the heart is touched by what you see and what you hear, but there is action to help. That's the quality of compassion. It's a very active quality. And of course there has to be wisdom. Wisdom to know what is right and what is wrong. I think all of them need wisdom. Compassion, loving kindness need wisdom. If there's no wisdom, then it becomes just like soppy kind of, what do you call it? Trungpa calls it idiot compassion, doesn't he? It's quite a hard term, but he says, we don't want to have idiot compassion. We want to have this great impartiality where we know what is right and what is wrong. How can we help? What can we do to help? What can we do to improve the situation, to make things better? But not to, it doesn't also like discourage us where we become disillusioned with the Dharma. Maybe we think, oh, the Dharma is not working, there's still so much suffering in the world, like Chenrezig. Of course, sometimes we can feel like that. But knowing that we can do something, knowing that we can do something positive is what stops that discouragement from happening, I think. And that's where Dalai Lama, he has so much hope to give to everyone who comes to see him. Lama Yeshe the same. Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, never mind the worst things happen. The very most terrible things you can imagine happen. And he still has so much positive to say. He still has a positive outlook. Even I think if Sammy Lane collapsed and Sammy Song London collapsed, I'm not sure I would feel so positive if that happened. No? So, but there is that optimism, or like hopefulness, by also knowing that we can all make a change, we can all change things for the better. We have responsibility, we have power and responsibility, we have ability, we have some knowledge and wisdom to know what to do. That is hopeful. So I think when we become very hopeless is when we cannot do anything. And sometimes we can feel like that, hopeless, we can't do much. So compassion is not pity or grief. Pity, when we look we pity someone for what they're going through. And we feel disempowered. That's different. Compassion has that quality. I just try to explain. We see the potential. So we respond with courage, we respond with wisdom in a situation. So compassion, love, joy, rejoicing. Rejoicing. It's called gawa, rejoicing, or mudita in Sanskrit. Is where we have a positive attitude because we rejoice in all the good things that are happening in life. We see the positive things. We have a sense of not only being drawn down or dragged down by the negative, but seeing all the good things that many people are doing in the world and that is happening in the world, and we rejoice in them. We feel uplifted by the positive actions of others. So that's what Rinpoche calls the lazy person's practice. Because all we have to do is just think of somebody who does a lot of good and then we rejoice, and he says we get the same merit as them. He says he's the lazy Lama. Lazy Lama's practice. I think we have to do it well though, in order for it to work. So we pray for all beings to be happy, for all beings to be free from suffering, and we rejoice in the happiness of others, starting also with ourselves. Rejoice in your own progress. Rejoice in your own good situation. Rejoice in your own practice. Rejoice. 2025, what did I do in 2025? What did I accomplish in 2025? What did I manage to do? How many prostrations, how many meditation sessions, how many retreats? How much did I do for my parents? What did I do for my friends? What did I do for those around me? Have I improved? How have I changed in this 1 year? And then you rejoice and you think, I didn't do too bad. I did pretty well. Might not be perfect, but I'm happy. I'm happy with 2025 in terms of my own accomplishment. Maybe not in terms of the wide. When you say 2025, we're saying what you contributed to 2025. We want every year to think that we contributed something positive to that year. We contributed something to the world around us, to our own betterment, our own path, the betterment of others to some degree, or even if it's to a limited degree, maybe to ourselves, so that we can in the future be able to contribute to something better. Life release, I know some of you did life release this morning. Saving lives, now that counts for 2026, not 2025. That's a wonderful thing to do. So all of that is how we should relate it to ourselves. Some people say, oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking about my own positive activities, but we should. We should encourage ourselves. We should not be proud. We should not be arrogant. We should not be big-headed or, boast about it. But we should see it use it as an encouragement and rejoice. Rejoice in our own good accomplishments and positive actions and progress on the path. So, same for others, what we see around others. But I think especially it's very good to do for yourself. Because often people tend to have lack of confidence, lack of they doubt, a doubt in what I'm doing, a doubt in my own ability, a doubt in am I doing things enough or right? So instead, try to really recount and rejoice. So that's a third of these 4 immeasurables. And what we should not mistake it for is what we call like frivolity. Frivolity can look like rejoicing, it looks like happy, but it has no ground, it has no grounding, it has no mindfulness. It also, motivation is not the same. So then the last of these 4 is impartiality. Impartiality, which of course has to apply to all of them. We need to practice loving kindness, compassion, rejoicing with impartiality. We can start, these practices always start with those close to us. We are not impartial, but we can train in impartiality. So we start by developing to those close to us, we increase more and more and more, to include more and more until we feel we can include everyone. Close, neutral, distant. So that's very essential for bodhicitta. This mind, bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. For us to develop that, we must train in impartiality. And of course, we see our own limitations when we practice. We become aware of our own limitations. But that's also an important learning. We see our own limitations, then we know where to apply ourselves. So that's not a bad thing. If we had no limitations, we would be Buddhas by now. But in terms of this impartiality, it's important that when we think about impartiality, we recognize all beings have the same potential, Buddha nature. We all have that potential for perfection, Buddha nature. We just don't have the same conditions. People don't have the same conditions. Different times in our lives, or different lives, we have various different situations. Buddha nature. Who said, because of Buddha nature, it's possible for us to gain liberation. Because of that essential, pure essence of our mind, we can purify everything that obscures it. And in the teachings on Buddha nature, there are different examples given for Buddha nature. It says it's like a grain that is covered by its husk. You husk the grains. You husk wheat, you husk rice, you husk barley, because it's a very hard shell on the outside. Stiff, hard shell that has no nourishment and that stops us from getting to the nourishing grain inside. And that's like an example of the kleshas or the impurities of the mind, anger, negativity, ignorance. So there are many different examples like that. I think there are 9 examples in the teachings on Buddha nature on how there are so many different obscurations that cover up this Buddha nature. So it's like honey in the middle of a lot of angry bees. The honey is the nourishing part, but it gets a sting of anger. So it's like when anger is strong. But so that's what we have to remember in this impartiality. We tend to judge people, isn't it? We like, we don't like, we feel comfortable, we don't feel comfortable. In terms of at least when we meditate, we should think of it like that all beings have this pure nature. And also we should think about how People are changing constantly. How we have changed ourselves. We are not the same person that we were 10 years ago, we were 20 years ago. And depending how old you are, you can keep going back. So how much have we changed? So much. We are not the same person. We don't look like the same person. Sometimes you see a person when they were like 20, you see when they're 60, you can't recognize it's the same person. So our appearance changes, our values change, our preferences change, likes, dislikes change, our interests change. Everything about us change. Our way of thinking, our way of judging others, our way of likes, dislikes, all of it changes. So it's the same for everybody else. Our qualities change. We have some qualities now that we didn't have 20 years ago. We have more understanding maybe than we had 20 years ago. Maybe we have more patience. Maybe we don't. But certainly we're not the same person as 20 years ago. Same for everyone else. Everyone else that we're judging, my friend, my enemy, neutral, I like, I don't like. I want them to be my friend. I want them to praise me. I don't want them to insult me, whatever, or I insult them. All these 8 worldly concerns. 8 worldly concerns are very much involved with friend and enemy, likes and dislikes, preferences, partiality. 8 worldly concerns are partiality, the total opposite of this 4th of the 4 immeasurables, impartiality. So we need to think about that, recognize that we can't judge others, and to train ourselves in developing a sort of a wish for all beings to be free from suffering. A wish for even the people who insult us, even the people who harm us, even the people who say bad things about us, that may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. May all beings be free from suffering. Every sentient being, may they all have happiness. So this is, this impartiality is not the same as indifference. Indifference, that's where it can be, we might think, oh, I am impartial. I'm impartial. I have no partiality. Maybe I'm just indifferent. Maybe I just don't care. Which is not an easy thing to recognize in ourselves. Sometimes we don't care. So we need to care by recognizing others suffer as much as I do. Others want to be loved as much as I do. Others want compassion as much as I do. And see that we are not on that level, we are not that different. So, indifference is more like when the mind is dull, when the mind is... I think indifference comes a lot. There was a question here about indifference. I think indifference arises a lot out of lack of clarity, not having a clear mind. Our mind is a bit dull. When we don't care, we cannot really be roused for anything. We're not interested. We're not nothing tempts us. Say if you don't care about food, you don't care about this, but here of course it's about the suffering of other people. If we have this dullness of mind, then nothing moves us. There's like a thick layer of clouds on our mind. It's a result of lack of clarity, I think. With clarity, our mind will be alive and alert to the reality of what is going on, to the reality of life and to the reality of suffering of others. Because that is the nature of our mind. The clearer the mind is, I think, the less of me there is. And the less of me there is, the more responsive we will be to the situation, to the current, to the situation around us. But that doesn't mean, I'm talking about, I'm talking about like theory. I'm talking about theory, I'm not talking about pure compassion, pure loving kindness. Because that's it's a very, very high goal to have pure compassion, isn't it? It's being a Buddha. But so we have to recognize that our compassion, our loving kindness is always mixed with some degree of ego. There's no way that it cannot be. Until we are Buddhas, it will be there. There's some degree, and we just have to refine and refine and refine. But this impartiality and we train in impartiality, and in terms of training on the path, we train in all these things actually. Not just simply one to another, even though we can, but they all kind of go together. Just like with meditating and developing clarity, the natural quality of the mind will be to feel compassion, because that is the compassion, that is the nature of a Buddha, of the mind of a Buddha, of a pure mind. It is compassion and wisdom, fearlessness. So from that point of view, the more we train, the more all these positive qualities will develop. And I would say it doesn't mean that the more verbal we are about it, that the more compassionate we are. It's not that. That doesn't mean, if we're very verbal, doesn't mean that we are more compassionate than the non-verbal. But it is about the state of mind and the purity of the state of mind. So that's the 4 immeasurables. Constantly, he says constantly, perfectly reflect on them. And then he goes on to talk about, I think, how to reflect on these 4 limitless qualities. And he says maybe we should sit then, and basically he says you divide beings into 3 categories: your friends, your enemies, and those who are neither friends nor enemies, so neutral. And you sit and you develop a wish for them to be free from suffering, or to be happy, first of all, to be happy, free from suffering. So you sit and you try to generate that. It's also kind of what we do in Tonglen. And then in the next verse, in verse 51, it's a little bit more complicated. He goes on to talk about how to apply the 4 immeasurables, how to meditate on the meditation, the actual practice of meditating on the No, sorry, not the 4 immeasurables, the 4 samadhis, sorry. But it's explained here in the commentary. Just says, how should we meditate on these 4 limitless compassions, or 4 limitless qualities? He says you should divide beings into friends, enemies, and neutral, and then sit and develop a wish that they may have happiness, and they may be free from suffering. They may rejoice in the goodness of others. So I think we could maybe do that for a short time. Well, the question here says how not to fall into a sort of indifference instead of equalizing the 8 worldly concerns. As saying, or like like saying, I don't care how to test it, I don't want to or think about or say, I don't care. So also I think like the answer to that question is to think about the four thoughts, to think about one of the four thoughts is the general dissatisfaction in samsara, the general suffering in the world. To really contemplate and think about that and recognize that to a much deeper degree. Then we won't feel indifferent. Suffering, old age, death. So that think about, contemplate, reflect on that, okay? Along with what we were just talking about. So now let's sit and meditate, because I have now talked for a long time, and then I think you need to rest your ears. So maybe just settle your mind for a little while on the present moment, using your breath. Stay focused, centered. So then bring to mind someone you care for, someone who's cared for you, someone who's helped you, someone who's been kind to you in your life. It can be your mother, it can be anyone like that. And just generate a real heartfelt wish that they may meet with happiness. They may meet with nothing but happiness. They may have a life full of happiness. So you can think of your parents, your relatives, your friends. Develop that wish for all your close ones to be happy. And then extend it more and more to include all those that are neutral, those you don't know, those who might become your friends in the future. They might become close in the future, they might not. You hear about them, but you see that just like your close ones, they also want to be happy. They also deserve to be happy. They also have the potential to be happy. And you extend it also to include all those that you might feel negativity towards, enmity towards, aversion towards. May they be happy. They have the potential for happiness. So you think, may all beings have great happiness. So if we genuinely wish for others to be happy, we cannot be jealous of their happiness. We cannot be jealous of their good fortune. We cannot be jealous of others who have more than us, who have things we may want for ourselves. you think, may all beings be free from suffering. So you think first again of your close ones, your loved ones, your friends, your parents, relatives, those who are close to you. May they be free from suffering. Genuinely, may all obstacles to their happiness be removed. May they be free from physical suffering, mental suffering, emotional suffering, suffering of loss, suffering of sadness, suffering of loneliness, any type of suffering. So you extend it out, all those you don't know, all those who suffer, physically, mentally, emotionally, animals who suffer, human beings who suffer, we don't know, neutral, we've heard about, they're suffering so in so many different circumstances and situations, hardship. I think, may they be free from suffering. They all want to be free from suffering. Every single one of them want to be happy. So you genuinely from the heart wish that all their suffering will be removed. And you also extend that wish for even for those you feel aversion towards, those you may call enemies, those who cause harm, who are selfish and cause harm to others. You think, may they be free from suffering and the suffering of their own karma, consequences of their actions. So you extend this wish to all sentient beings as much as you can. beings in the 6 realms be free from suffering. Suffering from sickness, old age, death. Limitless causes of suffering. And ultimately may they be free from ignorance, attachment and aversion, which are the ultimate causes of suffering. And then you practice rejoicing. Rejoice. Let's start with yourself. Rejoice in all the positive things you have accomplished. Things you have done, your efforts to tame your own mind, your effort in this Zangmo, study, reflection and meditation. And encourage yourself to do more, to continue to do your best. Recognize that the more effort you make and the more you put into that, the less regrets you will have when you look back, and the more positive results will arise and be accomplished. And then extend it to your loved ones, your parents, your relatives, your friends, those you care about. And rejoice in all the good that they're doing. All the good that they're accomplishing. Be happy at their happiness, at their good conditions, their good circumstances. Free from competition, free from jealousy. Truly rejoice in the goodness of others. And you extend it to those you don't know, those who are neutral. But think of all the good things people are doing in the world. There are so many people who are helping others, selflessly, active, doing what they can. And also there's so many, everybody's changing. Just like we are changing. Maybe before we didn't have this in mind, the Dharma in mind, now we have this in mind. Others also change. And rejoice. So rejoice in the growth of positives in the world in terms of those we are close to and those we don't know, those that are neutral. And even when something good happens for those that we have aversion towards, we feel enmity towards, we feel are not good people, when some happiness comes their way, rejoice. Rejoice in their happiness. Rejoice in their good luck, their good fortune. And wish for true joy to arise in them. So try to develop this rejoicing towards all sentient beings, limitless sentient beings. Then reflect on impartiality. Reflect on impartiality in terms of how friends become enemies, enemies become friends. Look at your own life, your own relationships, how they change. See how there's no real basis for having attachment to friends and aversion to enemies. And consider how everybody has the same potential. Think about it in terms of many lives. If you think of reincarnation, in this life we had a mother, everybody has a mother. We had a father. Next life, a different mother, different father, different relatives. Past lives, different fathers, different mothers, different relatives. think about it in a bigger scheme of birth, old age, sickness and death, of samsara. And think of how we are all, or think, you could say, everyone is like our mother, could be like our mother in the future. Just like our mother in this life, they deserve happiness, freedom from suffering, and rejoicing. And then at the end, just rest your mind, be present, rest your mind on the breathing, or just be present. So, as a summary, we have gone through from verse 28 up until verse 40, to the end of verse 40. So all of it relates to how to tame the mind. Say meditation, meditative concentration, in terms of what we should turn away from, what we should give up, and how we should give it up. The different types of distraction, different antidotes. And then finishing with this four immeasurable qualities, developing the four immeasurable qualities. So I think that it would be good if you could try to remember that until the next time. Focus mainly on thinking about the 8 worldly concerns, noticing how involved am I, how disturbed am I by these 8 worldly concerns, how concerned am I by praise and blame and loss and gain, etc. And then to try and focus on these 4 immeasurables, to develop loving kindness, compassion, joy and impartiality, and to try and think about it at least. I'm not saying you should meditate on it, I'm just saying, encouraging you to focus on part of the text, read through it again. You all have the text now, I think. And then we continue next time. Is there any questions that you want to ask? Next class is, I don't have the date. Does anybody have the date of the next class? 14th? 14th? Okay, 14th of February. So we meet again on 14th of February. And no questions? That's okay. And I doubt very much we will get to the end of the text by March. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. And the program is not terribly busy at the moment. There's been too much going on to really focus on making a new program. If any of you have any suggestions, you're very welcome to email the office. That might give some inspiration. Doesn't mean that necessarily it will happen, but maybe if it doesn't happen this time, it could happen next time around. So you're very welcome to come with ideas. Other than that, yes, then I would tell you also that Lama Yeshe, the plan is for Lama Yeshe Rinpoche to come from the 8th of July till the more or less 2 weeks covering. There'll be programs on those 2 weekends. I'm not sure exactly what those weekends are. I think he comes in the middle of the week, but in the next 2 weekends there will be a program on in a similar way that we had in July 2025. So I'm just telling people in advance so you have a chance to attend what you want to attend, and you're not tied up with other things if you want to be here. Apart from that, I wish you all the best, a good month, and I'll see you soon. Let's do the dedication. Sanam de tamche sipane topne nyebe danam pamjene jegana jebalam tukpaye sipe zole doa dolwa sho sangjo semjo Rinpoche Mache Panam Jejo Chik Chepa Nyampa Me Padang Kone Kondu Pelwa Sho Palen Lame Shape Tem Padang Kanyam Yong La Dixi Jong Wadang Dashen Malut Sosa Devjane Nyoto Sangye